Good morning, everyone. My name is Nicole, and I am the Parent Support Worker for the Niagara Catholic District School Board EarlyON Child and Family Center. I am here today for our weekly coffee and conversation in which all parents, grandparents, and caregivers are welcome. Our program topics revolve around ensuring that you feel well, confident, and present in your parenting and caregiving role. As always, if you are unable to sit with me now, you are more than welcome to warm up your coffee and sit with me at a later, more convenient time. Our video content is available on our Facebook page and YouTube channel, so be sure to follow and subscribe to stay up to date with our videos. Last week, we considered the Kids Have Stress 2 program rationale, their 8 key concepts, and their means of explaining stress, which was the stress stoplight. So hopefully you had the chance to review Miss Diane's Mindful Mini, as she provided some wonderful activities associated with the Kids Have Stress 2 stoplight poster. I especially loved her rendition of an I Can activity to improve our little one's self-esteem, all while helping them calm down with a breathing technique. So I enjoyed myself as I took a breath in, saying, I can breathe, and then exhale with a little wiggle. This week we are going to learn how to recognize stress in our children by utilizing the Kids Have Stress 2 program. So let's start by reviewing the different types of stress. So Kids Have Stress 2 outlines 3 different types of stress. There is positive stress, which refers to moderate, short-lived stress responses such as brief increases in heart rate or mild changes to the body's stress hormone levels. Remember the cortisol and adrenaline that we spoke of before. Lots of things in life can cause these positive stressors. So, the excitement of a birthday party or dressing up for Halloween. Even reading in front of the classroom can create this very acute stress response. But with the support of caring adults with whom children have formed safe, warm relationships with, children can effectively deal with these events that might provoke the stress response. And then number 2, there's tolerable stress. So it's important to note here that we can't prevent all stress for our children or ourselves. Whether stress is positive or tolerable, it's going to happen. Tolerable stress refers to stress responses that have more of an effect on our kids' brains. So every day they learn and make new connections within their brains. Well, stress can influence what connections are made within the brain. And although tolerable stress can influence these connections, tolerable stress is generally short-lived and allows for the brain to recover afterwards. Some tolerable stressors might include divorce or separation, a serious illness or health condition, a death, frequent moves, being bullied, or even dealing with unrealistic expectations or demands. So you see, we simply cannot protect our children from experiencing death. It's a natural part of our lives that we have to learn to manage, even from a young age. So the key component for our children to manage that tolerable stress is educating them to cope and recover from those adverse life experiences. Like we spoke of a couple weeks ago, we want to foster their resilience. And then finally, we have number 3, which is toxic stress. So toxic stress results from chronic, long-lasting, and uncontrollable stressful events. Or stress may become toxic for a child if they do not have those loving, caring adults supporting them through the stress experiences. So we know through research that with the frequent activation of the body's stress response, brain development can be negatively impacted. So that's some heavy stuff. If you're listening today, then it's pretty clear that you care about your child's development. If the discussion of toxic stress worries you or has you feeling anxious yourself, I want to share a quote made by Dr. Jean Clinton in her book, Love Builds Brains. My theory is that, based on brain research, the brain is plastic throughout life. It is never too late. I'm going to repeat that. It is never too late. It's never too late to support your child's emotional development and their ability to cope and manage with stress. And all children need is one parent or one caregiver or one teacher or coach or any adult available to them to support them. And as Clinton says, have their eyes light up when the child walks into the room. So let's take a deep breath and look past any possible toxic stress your child might have experienced in the past. And let's look forward and recognize what stress looks like for our kids, whether it's positive, tolerable, or toxic. So let's look forward. No two children are going to present stress in the same way. Symptoms of stress and overload vary according to age and their development of social, emotional, or biological development. So, as an example, your 2-year-old might be more likely to kick, bite, or push than a 6-year-old. So the response will affect the child's mind and body, and it can take careful observation to recognize those indicators as stress. So let's consider some different categories of stress symptoms. Number 1, we have the body. So consider the way that your child is talking about their body. Stress can present itself within the body through headaches, stomach aches, a rapid heartbeat, shallow breathing, cold, sweaty palms, possibly a skin rash. Maybe they're clenching their jaw, or they have disturbed sleeping patterns. Maybe they're experiencing some bowel issues such as diarrhea or constipation, or even a sudden sensitivity to sudden or loud noises. These can be indicators of stress bottling up within the body. We also have stress indicators that are associated with the mind. So consider whether or not your child's concentration has changed. Are they suddenly more forgetful? Are they less creative? Struggling to solve a puzzle that they've consistently been able to solve in the past? Or are they easily distracted or confused? You can also consider a child's feelings. So is your child acting restless, jumpy, impulsive? Perhaps they are starting to become withdrawn, fearful, or anxious. They might show signs of feeling frustrated, angry, sad, overwhelmed, panicky, irritable, helpless, hopeless, threatened, or overexcited, or oversensitive. And then finally, there's the behavior. So these might be the things that you notice first. Are you noticing an increase or a change in the amount of time that they spend whining? Or are they acting a little bit more clingy than usual? Perhaps they aren't listening, or they are biting or kicking. Are they crying uncontrollably or constantly twisting their hair? Are they sucking their thumb or nail biting? Perhaps suddenly they're more prone to accidents. Has their school performance changed? Are they eating more or less than usual? Are they having nightmares or other sleeping problems? Have they regressed to infantile-like behavior? This is a lot to consider, and some of these behaviors might actually be normal for your child based on their temperament. So if your child has always been withdrawn, then you shouldn't leave this chat thinking, that must mean that they have been stressed since birth. That's definitely not what we want to think about right now. Like we talked about in previous weeks, your child's temperament is going to influence how they are from a day-to-day basis. And as parents, you know what reactions in your child are typical and within a normal range. And we can encourage our children to recognize these feelings too by giving them that vocabulary. And for the real little ones, we can make a mind and body connection with stress by saying things like, what do your hands and feet want to do when you're angry? Where do you feel energy inside of your body when you get excited? And how does your stomach feel when you're worried? It becomes a concern if you notice a significant difference or change in your child's usual pattern of behavior. So for example, you might expect a quiet or shy child to become withdrawn, or a normally outgoing and active child to become aggressive when experiencing stress. If some of the other behaviors listed occur more frequently, it is usually a sign that a child is experiencing difficulty. But it's also important to look beyond that behavior. So, sure, they aren't listening, they're kicking, they're screaming, but what's going on inside? Why are they behaving this way? So, let's consider a day in the life of a preschooler. In my Kids Have Stress Too workshops, I've been lucky enough to discuss childhood stress with the real experts, parents, caregivers, whoever it is that's actually watching the kid day to day. And the question that I ask requires participants to either consider their own childhood stress or take their child's perspective. And it was really difficult. You know, the world our children are growing up in today is completely different than the world we knew as children. So let's use this guideline by the Kids Have Stress Too program to consider preschool and kindergarten stressors. So some stressors our kids encounter are daily hassles, while others are more serious and may last for longer periods. However, both types of stress can be upsetting for children. So let's start with kids aged 2.5 to 4 years old. The types of stressors that might occur are separation from the parents, transitioning from one activity or environment to another, fighting with siblings, overstimulation or being overtired, being teased or not having someone to play with, and that sense of isolation that comes from having no one to play with during the pandemic and school closures is a real important one to keep your eye on. Adjusting to new teachers or a new room, especially now, you know, kids that are going to school now might struggle a bit more after having spent so much time at home with the people that care for them. It can be a real difficult transition to head back to school. There are also, variety of foods or new foods can cause stressors. Being hungry, new situations, or fear of the unknown. Parents going away on a trip, which is hopefully not occurring right now. Friends moving away, not being able to express a need or want. This is super true for our little ones. They aren't quite there yet and being able to articulate what they're feeling on the inside. So they get really stressed out because they can't just tell you that their socks are itchy. Having too much to do, sharing toys, having fears, for example, fearing dogs or the dark. Those are types of things that can cause stress. Losing something or forgetting something, especially if it's a security object. I'm sure you would know this if your child has ever lost their teddy bear or their special blanket. Inconsistency in styles between parents and caregivers. It's always best to be on the same team if you can. Dealing with a new sister or brother. This is a big one. Being too hot or too cold. We're always trying to think of our sensory sensitive friends here, so you'd be surprised how easily sensory stimuli can actually stress out a child. There's a parent being absent for an extended time, or toilet training can be a huge stressor for kids. And then we have stressors for 4 to 5 year olds. These children experience the following stressors in addition to what we just discussed. So they might find stress from being late, having the pressure to excel, even in that young age, fear of failure, conflicting or very busy schedules. So, they've got school and then they come home and they've got to go to their extracurriculars and then they got to do their homework and then they got to eat dinner. They're just constantly go, go, go. Having to perform in front of others, not getting along with friends or classmates, exposure to world disasters, example, television news, current events. Obviously, this is a very evident one right now. Our kids will be stressed from the pandemic. This is a no-brainer. And then for all children, there are some changes that might cause stress for a long time. And these include things like moving to a new home, having a family breakup like separation or divorce, living in an abusive situation. Even if it's between the parents only, this can cause the child stress. Losing a loved one, which could even be a pet, could be a parent, grandparent, whoever it is that the child loved and has now lost, will cause stress for a longer period of time. There's illness of a family member can cause great distress, hunger, a change to custody arrangements, being bullied, moving to new early learning centers or schools, parental fighting, family money problems. You'd be surprised on how much your child can pick up. Unrealistic expectations from self or others. So this is if your child's experiencing perfectionism. There's language barriers, being left on one's own for too long, a parent remarrying or finding a new partner, and then health problems, whether that be the child's health problems or someone within the families. Now that we know what stress looks like and what might cause stress for our little ones, we'll wrap up with a few practice tips for recognizing stress in our kids. So the first one is to look for changes. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You are the expert on your children, so you know what's typical and within a normal range for your children. Just because I've flagged for you that being overexcited might be a sign of stress doesn't mean you should forget the conversation about temperament that we had a few weeks past. Some kids are just more overexcited and energetic, and this is within their normal range. Number 2 is to see beyond the behavior. So you're going to notice that difficult behavior first, right? In Dr. Clinton's book, she reminisced a moment with her daughter in which they had a bit of a conflict as her daughter just couldn't settle to get ready and to go out. She was having an absolute fit while getting dressed. Well, soon they realized it was actually because the socks they had dressed her in were too itchy. So to quote Dr. Jean Clinton, my daughter wasn't trying to make us late for a family dinner by having a temper tantrum if she didn't have the right socks on, which was the behavior in question. Continuing to quote, she was highly sensitive to the feeling of things and hadn't learned yet how to manage that sensitivity. It was our job to help her regulate her sensitivity by helping her recognize that the socks made her feel itchy. So swinging back to kids have stress too, they clarify this by saying children's behavior is their language to express how they are feeling. So we have to see past the inappropriate behavior and alleviate the cause. Again, as Dr. Clinton says, stress behavior is not misbehavior. Kids will do well if they can. I'll say it one more time. Kids will do well if they can. So let's look past the inappropriate behavior and see what's going on for the child that caused that behavior. And then number 3, you're going to want to assess for stress. So how long and how severe are the changes in behavior? Is the child experiencing one of the situations presented a moment ago? And finally, use your judgment. You'll have to help your child decipher if this behavior is attributed to some sort of stressor. But whatever the case, a child experiencing difficulties needs that extra care and reassurance. So that's all we're going to cover today. Next week, we will begin our journey in learning stress management strategies by looking at problem-solving skills. Please be on the lookout for our Mindful Mini activities tomorrow. Miss Diane is providing some wonderful tools that support your understanding of kids have stress too. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.